Here's a great exercise. If you have an athlete who goes into full-fledged panic attack mode at the drop of a hat, or they just can't seem to shake it, right? They're worry wards. They just worry themselves to death. And you're like, oh, just don't think about it. Oh, do these relaxation exercises. Oh, listen to this pump-up music. I mean, these are just Band-Aids, right? I've known 2 NCAA champions who met with a professional sports psychologist who did this, and it worked wonders. They were both ended up being NCAA champions. And there was still no guarantee. And in both cases, they both had female sports psychologists. The women said, there will never be a guarantee. You have to be okay with that. You have to accept it. You have to accept. Now, we know we can make 2 + 2 = 4. We know that, right? But you can't know that there's no guarantee that you're going to be the state champ or national champ or NCAA champ or beyond. There's no guarantee. And you have to be accepting of that. And that's the exercise that you want to have with your athlete. So in both these cases, their professional had them sit down and say, okay, they were trying to win the NCAA title, kind of choked, maybe, didn't win it, just didn't wrestle well. At least they feel like they didn't. And that's the whole thing. They just want to feel good about it. So what they did was they mapped out their life as an All-American, never an NCAA champion. They mapped it out. And they said, you know what, I'm going to be a college coach, I have a degree, I've got a girlfriend, I'm planning on marrying her, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm going to be a college coach, I'm going to coach my kids are going to be wrestlers maybe, I'm going to have a family, I want to move back close to home. I mean, they just seriously mapped out their whole life as not being an NCAA champion. And then they said, it's going to be a pretty good life, right? You're going to live to be 80, wrestling's over at 23. So you have, 60 years here. Then they said, well, let's map out your life if you were NCAA champion. And if you can win these close matches and you can make this happen. Their life was no different, right? Except for they had an NCAA title. And it was very exciting. So at the age of 23, that weekend, and, the cap to their college career was exciting. But their life was still going to be just as amazing, and that's a pretty good exercise, that you can take your athletes through. Because I remember years ago, Zeke Jones, he used to be the head coach of Team USA, and he's a coach that really turned Team USA around. Smart guy. Coached my brother a lot when my brother was wrestling, in like the world teams and all that. And I've always looked up to Zeke. He's only like 2 years older than me. But he's always seemed a guy that has a lot of things figured out, right? And what Zeke said was this: your wrestling style is going to have a lot to do with your personality, not just your type of an athlete you are. If you have a lot of fast twitch muscle, you can be explosive off the whistle, right? Or score from the outside. If you're super powerful, you wrestle differently. If you're really tall, you have leverage. If you're short, you don't. But the short guy might have more power, but no leverage. I mean, there's always strengths and weaknesses, right? But he said he's noticed that the kids or men's personality has a lot to do with their wrestling style as well. And you have to keep that in mind. But it also has a lot to do with how they handle the stresses leading up to the match, right? And sometimes the high drama dads, and usually it's dads, my kid's not like me, right? And they're growling at me, and I'm like, so? Cael Sanderson's pretty laid back. I don't think he ever really lost a match. He's Olympic champion. Now he's dominating the coaching scene. Right? Watch him coach match side in a tournament. He just kind of sits there. Your son's like that. So it's not bad, right? But we seem to think that our personality is the best. Well, look at your level of success. Now you might be some kind of a Olympian wrestler and self-made millionaire. I don't know. Probably not. The kids don't have to be like you. They have to be like they are. But the high-strung people, that's a strength and a weakness. Right? Being laid back and kind of more introverted, that can be a strength and a weakness too. Being really tall and skinny, that's great for wrestling, but it's also can be a weakness. Being short and powerful, that's a strength. Being powerful is a strength, but if you're short, that can be a weakness. But it also could be a strength. You have to choose. You develop your style around that, so that only the positive aspects of your body type and type of athleticism are on display. That's through good coaching, right? You narrow it down. Well, same way with your personality. But as far as wrestling style is concerned, that's a little more common sense. But how do they handle the pre-match side of things? Some people are just prone to panic. And so that's the reason I wanted to share that story about those two NCAA champions that I know and the professional advice that they got, because I know another elite coach. He says, my most successful athletes are oftentimes my least happy because they're so driven. They drive themselves to the top and they drive themselves right into a concrete wall. And we got to learn to help those kids to have some joy and pleasure and enjoy wrestling, right? Enjoy competition. Even look at the bright side when you lose, right? But the panic attack kids are the ones who seem to really, really, really struggle. And they're the ones who are kind of hanging out there on a limb and no one seems to be helping them. So follow that advice. Hopefully that can help and take your athletes through that exercise, because once they realize that, it's kind of like taking the life or death aspect out of it. And we're always taught, no, you should always compete like you know you're going to win. Expect to win. Never take no for an answer. Get to the island, burn your boats. We're only going home on their boats after we conquer, right? Rah, rah, rah. Well, you know what? Sometimes that's just social media memes, and it's not reality. So in the reality of it, sometimes we do have to understand that, you know what? We might not make it, and that's okay. Now, I think we will. We have to do A, B, and C, and D. But once you take the sting out of the worry that it may not happen, it's not as scary anymore, then you focus them where? On A, B, C, and D. You always focus on the how to get there. That's the reason if you see the famous wrestlers on social media, they're always focusing on, I got to focus on my fight and my effort. I got to focus on staying in my position. I get heavy-footed. I got to make sure I'm moving my feet. Some wrestlers say that, some don't. I got to make sure that I score more points in the first period. I'm a slow starter. I come out of the gates too fast. Sometimes that costs me. I'm going to be a little more patient coming out. My opponent, is good here, good there. I need to make sure that I seal that position off. Who knows? All of their conversations and interviews after or before their big matches, all of their internal talk, and I'm sure self-talk and their talk with their coaches and their teammates and their parents, is always about A, B, C, D. What do I need to do to win this match? And that's all you should be focused on. But sometimes it's tough to focus on that because your worry is like a magnet, right? It's dragging you. It's dragging you over the cliff. And once you take the worry out of the worry, right? It's not as powerful anymore because you've accepted the fact that, hey, I understand that a lot of things have to go right in order for me to win the state title this weekend. I think it's going to happen for me. But, I understand that there's some unknowns that I can't control, and I just have to be okay with that. And I tell my athletes this. There are people literally right now who haven't left their house in 20 years because they're afraid that if they leave their house, something bad will happen to them. Your parents and I, we know we can get in a car wreck. We know bad things can happen. We hope it won't happen. We know that you can have a disease. I mean, we know there's bad things lurking around every corner, but yet we just try to live our life fully anyway, and mistake-free, and do the things necessary so that things work out for us, and have faith that they will. And that's also part of the exercise, I think, is explaining that it's the same disease that they're suffering from. So if you have a parent, an athlete, or a parent actually, who's full-fledged worry wart attack or panic mode, there's some good advice. Use that exercise that I learned from some friends of mine. I think it'll help.